boys and girls, here is Mrs. Lynch with another Read Aloud for you. I hope all of you are having a fantastic day. I just want to remind you that I love you and miss you, and I look forward to reading this book with you. It's called Enemy Pie. So, boys and girls, when we read the book today, I want you to think of the word pie, right? So remember how we were talking about Arthur's purpose? Why did the Arthur write that book? We talked about that P is for persuade, I is for inform, and E is for entertain. And how perfect that this book is Enemy Pie. And pie are the acronyms for the Arthur's purpose. So I want you to think about which one of these is the Arthur using in the book Enemy Pie, okay? I also want you to think about how do the characters' feelings change? This is something that we've talked about in class, right? So how do the characters feel at the beginning of the story? How do they feel in the middle of the story? And how do they feel at the end? And of course, we'll try to do some predictions along the way, okay? And then I'm going to show you at the end an activity that you can do at home after we finish reading the book. Are you ready? Okay, let's kiss our beautiful brains. And we're ready to learn, right? Let's get started. Enemy Pie by Derek Munson. That's the Arthur. And the illustrator is Tara Callahan King. Boys and girls, think about what does the Arthur do in the book and what does the illustrator do. Start making some predictions. What do you think this story is going to be about? Look at the title, Enemy Pie. Look at his little sign, for my best enemy. What is an enemy? Any thoughts? Yes, an enemy is a person that we don't like. Maybe they did something that didn't make us feel so good or made us sad or angry, right? So we know that by spreading the seeds of kindness and by being positive and being mindful, we can really work on not having enemies in our life, right? So let's see what happens in this story. Okay, you ready to get started? Okay, so am I. Looking forward to it. It should have been a perfect summer. My dad helped me build a treehouse in our backyard. My sister was at camp for 3 whole weeks. And I was on the best baseball team in town. It should have been a perfect summer, but it wasn't. Who do you think is the narrator of this story? It was all good until Jeremy Ross moved into the neighborhood right next door to my best friend, Stanley. I did not like Jeremy Ross. He laughed at me when he struck me out in a baseball game. He had a party on his trampoline and I wasn't even invited. But my best friend Stanley was invited. Jeremy Ross was the one and only person on my enemy list. I never even had an enemy list until he moved into the neighborhood. But as soon as he came along, I needed one. I hung it up in my treehouse, where Jeremy Ross was not allowed to go. Boys and girls, how do you feel about this so far? What do you think he's feeling? The narrator, the little boy. Let's think about that. Dad understood stuff like enemies. He told me that when he was my age, he had enemies too, but he knew of a way to get rid of them. I asked him to tell me how. Tell you how? I'll show you how, his dad said. He pulled a really old recipe book off the kitchen shelf. Now, boys and girls, we've talked about recipes in class, right? And we used them to make things, right? Inside, there was a worn-out scrap of paper with faded writing. Dad held it up and squinted at it. Enemy pie, he said. You may be wondering, what exactly is enemy pie? You know what, girls and boys? I am wondering what enemy pie is. I'm curious to find out what this is. Are you also? What do you predict it might be? I was wondering too. But Dad said the recipe was so secret, he couldn't even tell me. I decided it must be magic. We love magic, don't we, boys and girls? I begged him to tell me something, anything. I will tell you this, he said. Enemy pie is the fastest known way to get rid of enemies. Now, of course, this got my mind working. Sounds like he's curious, right? What kinds of things? Could it be yucky, disgusting things? Would I put into a pie for an enemy? I brought Dad some weeds from the garden, but he just shook his head. I brought him earthworms and rocks. He didn't think he would need those things. I gave him the gum I'd been chewing all morning. Yuck. He gave it right back. He didn't need those things. What can his dad be possibly putting in that enemy pie? I went out to play alone. I shot baskets until the ball got stuck on the roof. I threw a boomerang that never came back to me. And all the while, I listened to the sounds of my dad chopping and stirring and blending the ingredients for the enemy pie. Hey, you know what? This can be a great summer after all, I thought. Enemy pie is going to be awful. I tried to imagine how horrible it must smell. Ugh. I wanted to ask Dad, what was wrong? Enemy pie shouldn't smell so good. It shouldn't look so good. I was curious. Well, my dad said, if enemy pie smell bad, your enemy would never eat it, right? Good point. So I want you to think about how the character was feeling at the beginning of the story, right? Now we're in the middle. Look at the illustrations. Remember, we've talked about the importance of how powerful pictures are and how it's important to include them in our writing, right? So look how powerful that is. Look at that pie. That pie actually looks pretty good, right? Let's see what happens next. The buzzer rang, bzz, or we can say it's the bell, right? The bell rang. And Dad put on his oven mitts and pulled out the pie. But still, I wasn't really sure how this is enemy pie and how it worked. What exactly did it do to enemies? Maybe it made their hair fall out. Maybe it made their breath stinky. Maybe it made bullies cry. I asked Dad, but he didn't really help me. But while the pie was cooling off, he filled me in on my job. I wonder who's going to be at the door when they answer it, huh? He talked quietly. He said to me, "There is one part of enemy pie I can't do. In order for it to work, you need to spend the day with your enemy. Even worse, you have to be nice to him. It's not easy, but that's the only way that enemy pie can work." Are you sure you want to go through all of this, my son? Of course I was. I was ready. It sounded horrible. That meant I was going to have to spend the day with Jeremy Ross, but I was ready for the challenge. When I went to Jeremy's house, he opened the door. He seemed surprised. He stood on the other side of the screen door and looked at me, waiting for me to say something. I was nervous. Can you play? I asked. He looked confused. He was puzzled. I'll go ask my mom, he said. He came back with his shoes in his hand. His mom walked around the corner to say hello. You boys stay out of trouble, she said, smiling. So it looks like he rang his doorbell, and he was surprised that Jeremy answered, right? Interesting. What do you think is going to happen with these boys? Now remember, he said Jeremy is his enemy. That must be pretty difficult to ask your enemy to play with you, right? What do you predict is going to happen next? How do you think the character's feelings are going to change now? It was strange, but I actually was kind of like having fun with Jeremy. But of course, I couldn't tell Dad since he worked so hard to make that enemy pie for me. And Jeremy Ross liked my basketball hoop. He said he wished he had a basketball hoop, but they didn't have room for one. I let him win a game. Is he being nice to Jeremy? Is Jeremy being nice to him? Let's see what happens next. Jeremy Ross knew how to throw a boomerang. He threw it, and it came right back to him. I threw it, and it went over my house. When we climbed over the fence to find it, the first thing Jeremy noticed was my tree house. So there goes the boomerang that he threw. And he noticed his tree house. Look at their faces. He looks surprised, right? But in a good way. Girls and boys, what do you think is happening? What is happening here? Are the characters changing their feelings towards each other? For the better? For the worse? I can't wait to see what happens next. My treehouse was my treehouse. I was the boss. Boss. That makes me think of in Foundations, the bossy R, right? If my sister wanted in, I didn't have to let her. If my dad wanted in, I didn't have to let him. Well, and if Jeremy wanted in, what do I do now? Can we go in? He asked. I knew he was going to ask me that. Oh! But he was the top person, the only person on my enemy list. And enemies aren't allowed in my treehouse. But he didn't teach me to throw a boomerang. Did he? He did. And you know what? He did have me over for lunch. And he let me play on his trampoline. He was being nice to me. which means I should be nice as well. Do you think he let Jeremy go in his treehouse? Let's see if your prediction is correct. Yes, he did. I climbed up ahead of him. I didn't want him to see the enemy list on the wall that I had because it had his name on it. So I tore it down before he got up. We played games. We had such a great time. And then my dad found us and asked us to come down. Dad made us macaroni and cheese for dinner. That is my favorite. It was Jeremy's favorite too. Maybe Jeremy Ross wasn't so bad after all. I was beginning to think that maybe we should just forget about that enemy pie. But sure enough, after dinner, my dad brought out that enemy pie. Oh no, I was thinking, Dad, it sure is nice having a new friend in the neighborhood. I was trying to get my dad's attention and give him hints so he understood that I didn't want to give him that enemy pie now that he's my friend. So look at the little boy's face here. The little boy who asked his dad to make the enemy pie. How does he look? He looks worried, right? Do you think he's afraid of giving his new friend the enemy pie? His friend is excited and happy. Do you think the dad is really gonna let them eat that enemy pie? He sure did. He cut up some slices for them. Whew. He passed it out with giant scoops of ice cream. Wow, Jeremy said, looking at the pie. My dad never makes pies like this. It was at that point I panicked. I was so worried. Oh no, I could not tell him to not eat it. What was going to happen? But I had to tell him, Jeremy, don't eat it. It's bad pie. It's like poisonous or something like that. Don't eat it. It's not a good idea. But Jeremy's fork stopped before reaching his mouth. He crumbled his eyebrows and looked at me funny. I felt relieved. I had saved his life. I was a hero. Was he really? What do you think happens next? So excited. If it's so bad, Jeremy asked, then why has your dad already eaten half of his slice of pie? Do you see his dad? He's a messy eater, right? He's funny. Ooh, this is good stuff, my dad said. Oh, and that was all he said as he sat there and we watched him eat that enemy pie. Dad was laughing and Jeremy was happily eating. He ate along. I, of course, was still a little worried. But then I realized, after I took a little tiny taste, that pie was delicious. It was so scrumptious. How can enemy pie taste so good? After dessert, Jeremy rode his bike home, but not before inviting me over to play on his trampoline in the morning. He said he'd teach me how to do a flip. As for enemy pie, I still don't know how to make it. I still wonder if enemies really do hate it, or any of those silly things happened to them. But I don't know if I'll ever get an answer because I just lost my best enemy. He lost his best enemy, and what did he gain, boys and girls? He gained a friend, right? How do the characters look at the end? How do you think they feel? Did their mood change? Did their feelings change? Absolutely yes, right? Especially when you think about how Jeremy felt, right? When that doorbell rang and he was invited to play. Do you see their faces, girls and boys? And now look at how they feel at the end. They're so happy. I think they're in the green zone. What do you think? Now I want you to go back to the cover. Does that really look like enemy pie? No, not like the one the dad made, right? I think that the narrator, the main character, he was thinking maybe that's what it was gonna look like. But it ended up being pretty good. It was so yummy, and it was just so special how it was able to bring the boys together. So when you think about the author's purpose, pie, did the author persuade, inform, entertain you? Now remember, we can use all these three. It doesn't have to be just one, right? Maybe there was a lesson in the story that you learned. Maybe the author persuaded you to make your own pie. Maybe you felt that this was an entertaining book because there were some parts that were pretty funny, right? And so one of the activities that you can do with this book is you can do this in the back of one of your blank sheets in the packet that you have, or you can do this in your journal or notebook. And what you can do is make a big circle, like a pie, okay? And if you want, you can make slices of a pie if you want. For example, this would be 4, right? And maybe in one part, you want to write your favorite part of the story in one of the slices. Maybe in another slice, you may want to write how the author's feelings change. I'm sorry, not the authors, the characters. Silly Miss Lynch. So you may want to write how the character's feelings changed in another part. Maybe in another one of your slices, you want to identify whether the author did persuade, inform, or entertain, right? The pie. You can identify which one the author used. And one more other thing you can do is, if you can change the end of the story, how would you change the ending? Would you have the boys go to Splashdown? Or would you have them go to a special park like the Pew Park? Or would you have them go maple sugaring? Or go to a zoo or an aquarium? So you can create your own pie and write different responses to our story that we just read. Girls and boys, I really hope that you enjoyed this read aloud of Enemy Pie. Don't forget to work on your packets every single day for at least 1 hour, 30 minutes reading, 30 minutes math. Go on the websites, visit our class page. You can go on Google Classroom, and you can even go back to the story I read the other day about the cow that went oink. And as Miss Lynch keeps adding more videos about different stories, you can go back and hear them again and write different responses. And you can also go to our mindfulness tab to use those resources and watch the videos that I'm creating about that as well. Remember, girls and boys, I love you so much and I miss you. I hope all of you have a wonderful and peaceful day, and stay in touch with me. I'm sending you big heart kisses. Don't forget to kiss your amazing and beautiful brains for working so hard, and give yourselves a round of applause for a great job. See you soon. Love you.